Hey everyone, I'm Jason Crandell. Welcome to Glow. What we're gonna do is we're gonna look at my 10 favorite postures for teaching strength to newer students. Now, we have quite a bit of time in this sequence, and there's gonna be several of these postures where we do different variations and multiple repetitions of. My goal is that you practice and you work a little bit and you get in your body and that this practice makes you feel robust. And yet I want you to get the details and the repetitions to develop accuracy. So the first thing that we're gonna look at is downward facing dog. And the first part of down dog is gonna be figuring out the stride between hands and feet. Because if that's not set up, nothing else is really gonna work well for you in this pose. So for down dog, just lay straight down. There's other ways that people are gonna tell you to set up for this, but this is gonna help you get the right distance between hands and feet for almost everyone. So you lay flat. You take your fingertips in line with the center of the chest, right? So right in line, you look at it, fingertips kind of front of armpit, center of chest, and about shoulder width apart. If you're a little tighter, you can take the hands a little wider. That's not a problem. So keep the hands where they are, keep the feet where they are. Don't change their position. Come up onto all fours. Then from here, tuck the toes under. And first version of down dog, you're gonna lift the heels up, you're gonna lift the hips up, lift the hips up as high as you can, but also lift the heels up as high as you can. So if you're really new to yoga, and especially if you come from kind of an athletic background, you might be familiar with a push-up, but this is not. You're much more like a V. So, like an upside down V. So lift your hips as high as you can, heels up, okay? So I want you to work strongly. Press the floor away from you with your hands. Press the floor away from you with the ball of the feet. And keep lifting the sitting bones up like you're trying to touch your bottom to the ceiling. As you do that, relax the neck. Take another moment. Keep pressing the floor away from you. And then now bring your knees to the mat, but don't change position of the hands. Because you have that distance, I want you to keep it. So second version, same pose, but with knees bent and heels down. So start the same way. Hips up and back. Feet about hip width apart, but over the years that's gonna change. And if you're a little tighter in your hamstrings, take the feet a little wider, that's nice. So now, heels down, but bend the knees. So even if you're not tight, bending the knees is gonna get you more into your shoulders, create a little bit more action and strength in the shoulders. So your knees are bent, like when you look at them, they're noticeably bent. You're pressing your hips up and back. You can imagine that you're taking your sitting bones, your bottom, towards where the wall and the ceiling come together behind you, kind of that angle. Good, another strong in-breath here. And then exhale, bring the knees to the floor. Sit back on the heels for a moment, just shake out the arms. And then final version, same distance, lay face down. Fingertips in line with the center of the chest. This down dog is just such a staple posture in contemporary yoga. So fingertips in line with center of chest. Press up onto all fours. Start the same way we did the first round, hips up, heels up. Hips up, heels up. Then lift your butt as high as it'll go. Push the floor away from you. Engage your thigh muscles. Your heels are still up. Look at your thighs, your quads, try and engage those. Then drop the heels down and back. Good, stay with that for another moment. You're pressing the floor away, one more inhalation. And then bring the knees to the floor, sit back on the heels for a moment. So another staple, okay? And this is just such a good pose to develop whole body awareness and strength. And this is the kind of thing that's just everywhere in a yoga practice, which is plank. And I'm gonna show you two versions of plank pose. One you'll see a lot, one is really important but very rare. So you start on all fours, and then from all fours, there's a couple of different ways to do this, but more or less you can just figure it out. Middle finger or index finger facing forward. You can kind of play with what's most comfortable. Then from there, press the floor away from you, so you're broadening the shoulder blades. You're not rounding the upper back, you're just pressing the floor away. Keep that pressure, push the floor away, and then straighten the legs. So as you do this, your arms are vertical. your shoulders are right over the wrists. You're not leaning down on the arms, everyone. Don't lean on the arms. Drive through them. Then as you drive through them, your front ribs are lifting up and your tailbone is scooping a little bit down. The buttock is firm. So in all of these poses, these strength poses, you're creating a lot of isometric strength in your body. One more breath, and then knees to the floor. Sit back into child's pose, and then come all the way up. That can be challenging for the wrists, so we're gonna look at two other variations. So the first variation that you're gonna do, the second variation we're gonna do is a whole nother posture later. But start the same way, okay? So arms underneath the shoulders, straighten the legs, and then now make the posture longer, about 6 inches longer, by taking the feet back or the hands forward. So I tell my students this is longer plank, okay? This is just a variation of plank. So when you look down, your hands are a little bit forward of the shoulders, not directly underneath them. The fingers are pressing down, you're pressing the floor away, the front ribs are lifting, and the buttock is firm. Head's a little bit up. Good, one more inhalation here. And then bring the knees down, sit back on the heels, and then third pose. I actually think this is probably the single most important pose in yoga for people in a modern era who work at desk for a long period of time. But it's not a fun or a satisfying pose. It's a kind of a hard pose, but it builds a ton of functional strength. It's a locust pose. We're gonna look at a couple of variations. So lay straight down. So this practice, you can practice in and of itself, but also it's a tutorial that's gonna teach you how to do a lot of other practices, especially level 1. So you lay face down, and then I would like for you to reach the hands back, palms face down on the mats. Now, raise the legs just a little bit, not very much, raise the legs a little bit. Then as you raise the legs, those hamstrings and buttock muscles are working. Lift the chest just a little bit. Keep your palms facing down, but raise the arms. You're drawing the shoulder blades down towards your bottom. You're hugging the shoulder blades towards each other. You're raising the arms, but the palms are still facing down. So all the muscles on the back side of the body that are weakened from daily life are strong. Take one more inhalation, and then as you exhale, come all the way down, turn the head to one side. I'll tell you, all of these postures that I'm teaching in this practice are staples that I still use at the highest level classes that I teach. Even in my advanced trainings, we still work these poses ad nauseum. So the other version of locust, for those of you that have the flexibility, you're gonna interlace the fingers behind you. So when you interlace those fingers behind you, you're gonna get a little bit more stretch in the front of the shoulders. Everything else is the same. So you lift the chest a little bit, you raise the legs a little bit, and then with the fingers interlaced, you reach the arms back. Good, nice steady breath. You're not trying to go super far, so you're not straining yourself. These are low range of motion, high degree of isometric engagement. Good, take one more inhalation. And then as you exhale, release that. And then just as a bonus, up onto all fours and briefly back into down dog. Stretch back into down dog. You can go heels down. You can go heels up. You can go bent knees. When you're going heels down, don't worry if your heels don't touch the floor. There's a lot of factors involved in that. After 23 years of yoga, my heels still don't touch the floor because of the angle of my ankles. Take another breath, and then bring the knees all the way down and into our really integral strength-based standing postures. So our fourth pose here, which is our first standing pose, is Warrior One. And we want to get the distance between the feet perfect. So you're going to start with kind of a short stride. Okay, so feet not very far apart. We're going to change that in a moment. Front heel and back heel for a newer student in line. That's going to change over the years, but that's how we're going to keep it. Front knee is just a little bit bent. We're gonna increase that in a moment. So when you bend the front knee, the front shin is vertical, and you're not letting that knee drop in. The right knee is facing straight out over. The right kneecap is facing straight towards the front of your mat. Hands to hips, hips level, okay? So you have three things. The front knee is bent and the shin is stacked. The front heel and the back heel are in the same plane. The hips are level, that's it. Now, for more intensity, start to walk the back foot back. And as you walk that back foot further back, keep the pelvis level, press the feet actively down into the floor, and then now stretch the arms wide out to the side. So the front shin is staying vertical, each side of the pelvis is staying level with the other, and you've walked those feet away from each other till you're getting a good, strong challenge in the legs. Good, another moment or so, gaze towards the front fingers. Another deep breath or two. Remember, a key to these poses is using the ground. Press the feet down. Inhale, straighten your front leg, hands to hips, feet parallel. And then change that, second side. Kind of shorten the stride up to start with, right? Tiny bit of a separation between the feet. Left heel and right heel in the same plane. Then from there, pelvis level, front knees bent. I'm not trying to go very far. Technique really matters with this stuff. With the hands on the hips so that you can feel that those two hips are level with each other. Now start to walk the feet a little bit away from each other, bending the front knee deeper. And then once you get to a place where the front shin is still vertical, the front heel and the back heel, and don't be afraid to use your eyes. Look down at your own heels. Front heel and back heel, same plane, hips level. Then stretch the arms wide out to the side. Breathe. And be assertive with the feet. Press the feet really firmly down into the floor. Use those muscles, cultivate that tone. Good, one more in-breath. And then exhale, straighten the front leg, hands to hips, feet parallel. Step the feet all the way together. And then warrior one. So you're gonna have a really similar setup, but it's a little bit different orientation to the feet. Okay, so to get the width of the feet, I want you to face the front of your yoga mat, feet hip width apart. Usually you're gonna come into this pose from a different position, but this is gonna really help you understand the distance between the 2 feet. Not the distance apart, but the width. So newer students, I want the feet to be hip width apart. So you just don't need a ruler for that. Just more or less see how wide the hips are. Look down and the heels are that wide. Keep them that wide. And then step the left foot back. So the right foot is to the right and the left foot is to the left. The feet are not crossed and they're not in the same plane. And then you're not looking for much distance yet. Hands to hips. A really common mistake, the pelvis tilts too far forward and the lower back is jammed. Pose is all wrong. So lift the front of the hips up, kind of like you're pulling up the front of your waistband. Front shin vertical, right? And then as you do that, start to walk the front foot forward or the back leg a little bit back until you feel like, all right, this is now starting to stretch and strengthen and work those legs a little bit. From that position, hands to prayer, turn the chest towards the front of the room. If that tweaks the lower back a little bit, then don't do it quite as harsh. You can let the torso be diagonal. Stretch the arms towards the ceiling. Good, as you reach the arms, don't have kind of engaged arms. Have engaged arms. Reach completely, those elbows are straight. You're working the triceps. Reach all the way through your fingers as your feet press strongly down. Good, take one more inhalation. And then as you exhale, straighten the front leg, hands to hips, turn the feet parallel and just kind of wiggle them together. Set up the same way on the other side. Again, as you progress through your yoga experience, you probably start to do other things where you're tying together poses, but if you don't understand the foundations, then the stuff that ties them together just kind of confuses the whole game. Feet hip width apart. Keep that width between the 2 feet. Step the right foot back. Don't step it back too far. We want to make this easy to start with. Front shin vertical. Fingers on the front rim of the pelvis. You lift the front of the pelvis up a little bit. And then feel those legs. And if it's not quite interesting and demanding enough to you, you need more distance. If this feels like torturous, you need to step the back foot in. If it feels just right, then you had a good first guess. Okay, anchor down through the feet, press the floor. Stretch the arms up. There's different opinions on this, but for now, arms shoulder width apart or even a little bit wider. Over time, you might bring those hands together, but even if you can, don't bother with it now. Focus much more on pushing the floor away while strongly reaching up. Good, and allow the shoulders to lift. You're gonna hear a million times to drop the shoulders, let the shoulders lift. Good, take another inhalation. And then exhale, straighten the front leg. Turn the feet parallel, and then just step the feet together. Another standing pose, warrior 3. This is a standing balance, okay? This pose used to really, really frustrate me. So what you're gonna do is come back to the front of the mat, bend both knees a little bit. So we're gonna do 2 versions of this pose. So with the knees a little bit bent, bring your hands together in prayer. Keep your right knee bent, shift all of your weight into it, and pick the left foot up. Now from here, keep the right knee bent, tilt forward, hands are just staying in prayer, and you're gonna stretch the left leg back, okay? If you fall over, you're not the first, and you won't be the last. So don't feel bad about it, but come back into the pose. Take a breath or 2. Standing knee is bent, hands are in prayer. You're stretching the top leg back, toes pointed or foot flexed. Doesn't really matter. And then back to center, both feet down. Good, just as a little bonus. Inhale, stretch the arms up. Then exhale, bend the knees and fold forward. Stay there for a moment or 2, bent knee, standing forward fold. Just take it in, take a breath or 2. Nice. Second side, this is a version of warrior 3. Hands in prayer, knees are bent. Shift the weight into the left foot, reach the right leg back behind you. And as you reach that right leg back behind you, the left knee is staying bent, chest is staying up and pulling forward. As well as you can sort, as well as you can figure it, top leg and torso are about parallel to the floor. Good, take another inhalation, you're just practicing, so don't worry if you fall. And then as you exhale, both feet down, forward fold for a moment. Good, take a moment, take a breath in there. Nice, hands to hips, come all the way up to standing. Okay, now we're gonna do the full version of that pose. I don't think it's a level 1 pose at all. I think that modified version is, but why not toss it in just to kind of play with it, okay? So we'll go from the first one, that modified version, and then if you're feeling all right with it, we'll kind of tease it out into kind of the full reach of the pose. If it feels a little bit beyond your present moment, then just you get a repetition of the modified version. So you stay with the knees bent, hands together in prayer. Lean to the right side, right knee bent. Keep it bent as you reach the left leg back. You can point the toes or flex the foot. Both are reasonable options. And then, if you want to stay here, or straighten the standing knee and reach both arms forward. So warrior 3, incredibly effective strengthening pose, but difficult. Good, as I tumble in the pose. Good, take another inhalation. And then as you exhale, both knees bent, feet on the floor. Nice, simple little forward bend. Good, give yourself a breath here. It's good, strong standing poses. Warrior 1, 2, 3, really kind of the best strength-based standing postures. Hands to prayer. Of course, when we're doing strength-based standing postures, it isn't just kind of raw power. It's also technique, it's skill, it's presence of mind, it's range of motion. Okay? Shift into the left foot. Keep the left knee pretty deeply bent. That bend in the knee keeps the whole body a little bit closer to the floor and makes you more responsive. Good. And then stay there or straighten your standing knee and reach both arms forward. Couple of steady breaths. Good. Another moment or two. Nice. And then both knees bent, forward fold. Good. Take a nice deep breath there. And then from there, let's walk back to down dog. No reason not to have another repetition of that down dog. See if you can find the feeling that you had earlier of the distance between the hands and the feet, but now you've come in from a different way. So can you, from muscle memory, kind of feel that right distance for your body? Good. Another breath. And then knees to the floor. Okay. So back to really core-based strengthening and back to really hip, shoulder, arm-based strengthening. So what we're going to look at is we're going to look at a version of modified side plank. So to do this, you're going to come onto all fours, right? And then from here, go to plank. And then now for side plank, this is kind of a little tricky, but you can do it. So what you're going to do is you're going to step your left foot mid-mat. So left foot halfway between the feet and the hands, just halfway up. And then now with that left heel, turn in towards the center of the mat to the bottom of the foot comes to the floor, and those toes are facing the side of the mat. Now just roll to the outside of the right foot. Right arm is directly underneath the shoulder, right? You kind of have this tripod base. Top arm reaches towards the ceiling, and you press the floor away and lift the hips. You're good, nice and steady. Just drive the floor away, lift the hips. Good, nice steady breath or two. Good. And then to come out, left hand down, step back into down dog. Then from there, right foot, mid-mat. Don't go further than that, just mid-mat. Spin the heel in, bottom of the foot to the floor. Roll to the outside of the left foot and charge up towards the ceiling with the right arm. The right foot and the left hand, you're pushing the floor away. You're lifting the hips and projecting your top arm towards the ceiling. Good, nice deep inhalation. Then exhale, release, all fours, and a brief child's pose. Good. Press the hands down, sit up. Now, we looked at plank. We looked at longer plank. So plank was arms vertical, longer plank. The hand was a little bit further forward. Now we're gonna look at forearm plank. I'll tell you, this isn't as common of a posture, but it's the kind of thing that is an incredibly effective strengthener for the whole body, that if you do it consistently, it's gonna complement your practice. So instead of having the arms straight, you're gonna bring the knees to the floor and you're gonna bring the elbows down. And then with the elbows down, there's a couple of different ways to do this, but I really prefer the fingers interlaced so you have a connected frame between the two arms. So interlace the fingers, press the outer wrist down, and then just like you did earlier, now straighten the legs. It's very typical when people straighten the legs, they'll kind of drop the belly and the front ribs and arch their butt up. That's the opposite of what you want. So you want to get those hips low, everyone. Thighs active, hips low, front ribs lifting up. So it's like you're driving the floor away with the feet and the arms. You're doing the opposite of sagging in your core. So you're lifting the belly and the front ribs, but then you're not taking your butt towards the ceiling. You're dropping those hips a little bit, keeping everything strongly engaged. Good, one more inhalation. and then knees down. Child's pose again. Nice. And then from there, come back up. And then now what I want to do is final one, two more actually. Final seated one. I want us to do boat pose. And as you practice yoga, you're going to come across a lot of different instructions on boat pose. You'll come across a lot of different instructions for every pose, but especially for boat pose. The way we're going to do boat pose now, you're going to keep the knees bent because technique really matters. That's something to always remember in strengthening, is that if you are distorting your body and you don't have good technique, even if you're working hard, it's just not an effective way to strengthen. So sit, take the tip of the toes to the floor, reach the arms straight forward. Raise the shins, flex the feet, shins parallel to the floor, and glue the inner thighs together. Lift the chest up, lift the shins a little bit up. Knees are staying bent, okay? If this is too pinchy in the front of the hip at the groin, then you can do the same thing but move the feet a little bit apart. Or if you practice in a gym, or if you have a physio ball or an exercise ball or a medicine ball, put that between the thighs, give a good squeeze. That's another way to do the pose really nicely. Stay with it for another moment. Chest up, lower back up. One more inhalation. And then as you exhale, just sit cross-legged for a moment. Good. Take a nice deep breath here. And then one more time, briefly. Tiptoes to the floor, arms parallel to the ground. Kind of press your butt down to help lift your chest. Then raise the shins, glue the knees together unless that's too pinchy, in which case you can create a little bit of separation there. Good, another moment or so. Your belly is going a little bit back, but even more the chest is going up. Take a breath, and then from there, undo it. And the way that you're gonna do the final pose before a quick little rest, bridge pose, this is a very difficult pose to understand where to place your feet if you start on your back. And every teacher on the planet teaches the pose. They lay people down first, and then you put the feet in the correct place. I'm gonna change that. I'm gonna have you put your feet in the correct place, and then you're gonna lay back. Because when you lay back, you can't see the feet, and it's hard to feel them. So get the feet first, all right? Just sit, hands to the floor behind you, knees bent, feet on the floor. And then just look at the feet. Take the feet slightly wider than the hips. Having a little bit more broadness between the feet when you're a newer student is almost always a good idea. So the feet are just slightly wider than hip width. And then lift your butt slightly up and bring your butt close to the heels. You're gonna be given like 2-finger widths, like all sorts of things, but just as well as you can, just look. Your butt is not pressed against the heels, it's just close, okay? You're just in the ballpark. Feet hip width, maybe a little bit wider. Keep that, and then lay back. Okay, now from here, start to 2 versions of bridge. Start this first version, arms overhead. So this is all about the strength of the back of your hips, so hamstrings and glutes. So from here, with the arms reaching overhead, press the heels firmly down, firm the hamstrings, firm the buttock, lift the hips. As you stay with this for a few moments, right, just keep pressing the heels down. With the arms overhead like this, you're required to use the hip muscles much more. So it's not quite as much of an opener for the front of the shoulders and chest, but this version really gets to those hip muscles and creates strength on the backside. Nice, one more in-breath, and then exhale, come down. Good. Same thing, start the same way, come right back up. This is our last pose together, okay? You'll have an optional Shavasana that I'll strongly encourage, but it's gonna be up to you. So keep digging those heels down. Now, take the hands, hold the side of the mat, and roll your shoulders under your body a little bit. Press the heels down, press the arms down, puff the chest. Inhale here, and then now exhale, come all the way down. Pause for a moment with your knees bent, feet on the floor. Okay? Feel your body. This is good stuff. Again, like I said, these are the really significant staples in many postures that you're gonna work on every level. And these are also really good postures to make the body more strong and mobile. If you can stay in Shavasana, please do it. Otherwise, nice practice. Namaste.